Hey everyone, this is going to be a track walk of Lime Rock Park in the classic configuration without the chicanes. We are using the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. I'm first going to play the lap in full in cockpit view, and then I will do it in chase view, and then we'll do some track analysis. Now here's the lap in chase view. Alrighty, so for your reference, that lap was a 50.19. So just a couple things I just wanted to mention. So first, as I go through the track, you notice this is kind of a baby Watkins Glen almost. There aren't that many corners, obviously, since it's a very small track, but most of them are pretty much a straight, a long corner, and then a straight. So it's really important to focus on your corner speeds here, and especially because the track is really short. In a longer track, you can make a couple mistakes and still recover and get a decent lap, but here one small mistake and it'll cost you tenths that are huge in such a short lap. The other thing I wanted to mention that you will notice, I'll point out to you as we go through the track, is that the car definitely does affect your line here, or I should maybe say the possibility of lines, dependent on how fast the car is and also how much aero it has. Iracing literally just changed the Cup car. This is now season 1 of 2021, and they reduced a lot of the aero on the car, so it behaves very differently, which made this track walk very difficult for me. But it still is a quick car. It's not a Miata that has no aero but is also slow, and then it's not a GT3 or even a GTE that is both very quick and has a ton of aero. It's in the middle. It's quick in a straight line with 500 horsepower, but it does not have. It has very little aero right now, so it definitely affects how you end up taking certain corners and there's basically a lot of different lines that can be taken. I chose this specific lap, even though I had faster laps and stuff. That I feel like this is more of a generic line that's kind of in the middle, and it's fairly smooth. So let's get in the lap, and we'll take a look as we go. So coming now into turn one, our braking marker, I'm usually aiming for somewhere around the 3. I'm probably going to be reaching peak brake pressure around 2. Before we actually go into the corner, corners 1 and 2 are kind of like one big corner that you're taking as a double apex. The only thing that makes this corner or 2 corners a little tricky is the fact that your 2 apexes are kind of far apart. So normally, where with a double apex, you may be trailing all the way into your second apex and getting on the gas right before. You'll notice here, we're going to take our first apex very early and actually get back on the gas to wash out even further wide before we then bring it back in. Because if you don't do that, you're basically going to be ending up coming into the second apex early too, which is just going to compromise your exit on turn 2. But yeah, so here we're going to be braking, trying to scrub off most of the speed in a straight line. I'm reaching peak pressure, looks like a little bit before the 2. Right around there, like between like 2.5 or so. And you want to start turning in right around the 1 marker. And then as we turn in, we're going to be trailing off the brakes as usual. And actually, like I was saying before, the corners here are in general fairly long corners. This is obviously, turns 1 and 2 is kind of one super long corner. Trail braking is very, very important here because it is such a short lap, and like I said, so your corner speed is very important. You want to try to carry as much speed in every single one of these corners on top of getting a good exit, because with such a short track, every mile per hour that you're losing and at the end of the lap is going to be tenths, which is huge. 4 or 5 tenths here means a lap at like Road America, you're a second and a half behind your opponent. So trail braking is very, very important here. So we're going to trail into a little bit after the curbing here, and then like I said, we're going to get back on the gas here to wash out a little wider before we then let off the gas to get the nose back in a little bit, and then we'll take our late apex here and get back on the gas so that we can get a nice exit out. Now here is where I was going to say that there are different lines. If you have a high downforce car, I actually normally go into that turn 1 even faster, trailing even deeper, but because you have the high downforce, you can actually take that the curve between turns 1 and 2 much, much faster. So you can actually trail all the way into your late apex here. You would have already had the car essentially turned at the angle that you want. And then coming out here, I would be going even faster, and I would probably track out a little bit wider. I'd probably get onto the curbing there. Well, in this case, because I don't have the downforce, what I'm trying to do here is not go too far out wide, because now what I'm going to have to do, as you see, is bring the car back over to the right side as much as possible. So I'm kind of like a little to the left of the middle of the track here. I'm trying to basically open up this corner here. Like I said, most of the corners here are actually like the Glen in terms of straight corner straight, except pretty much right here, turns 2 going into turns 3, and turn 3 going into turn 4. The most important corner here is actually going to be turn 4. That's where we want a good exit, because it's a lot of full throttle after that. But you'll see as we go into this corner, we're going to compromise the exit on this corner. It's a left-hander, so you think you're going to track out to the right afterwards. We're actually going to try to stay completely to the left here. In regards to taking this corner, it's going to be kind of a double apex corner. We're going to come in here. This is going to be our first apex. We're still trailing the brake, trailing the brake, trailing the brake. And you're going to see here, this is where our second apex is going to be. I did get on the gas a little bit here, and that's only because I felt I shaved off a little too much speed before. In general, you would try to carry the line here is good, but you should be going a little bit faster so you can basically keep trailing all the way into this second apex. And right around here, where I lifted and then got back on the gas, that is where you pretty much want to start to pick up the throttle. But like I said here, you are not tracking out wide. You want to stay to the left here, because now this turn is the turn where you do not want your exit compromised. So now, as you can see, we are set up perfectly for turn 4 here. And let me just go back a little bit here. If you see right there how the left line kind of straightens out, that's pretty much what you're aiming for when you're coming out of this corner. So you late apex here and straighten your car pretty much in line with this here. Then we're going into this corner, and it's just a little lift to get the nose turned in, and then you'll see there's a nice little dip, some camber on the track here. You can pretty much right then just pick up the throttle and go full throttle, and then it's going to be full throttle all the way to the next corner. Just try to straighten out your line as much as possible. And now here we're bringing it over to the left for the right-hander coming up. This is another one where I feel like there are multiple lines. I myself, even in this cup, when I was doing my laps for this track walk, was taking a couple. Well, I was taking a couple different lines. Another one of them is actually, I think, slightly faster. I had a few laps into the 49s, and that was the way I took this corner. But I feel like this is a little smoother and safer, so this is the one that I want to show. So we're going to stay to the left here. You want to try to open up the corner as much as possible as usual. So we're going to try to go onto the curbing a little bit here. That's when, and you pretty much start your braking right around where the curbing starts. That's pretty much when I pick up my braking. So we're braking into the corner and then letting off and trail braking in here. And right around where this curbing starts is when you start to pick up the throttle, and you'll also notice there's a little dip here. And what's great about this uphill is the fact that even though right now it looks like we are apexing super early, when you're going uphill, your tires and suspension, they're all compressed into the pavement, so you have a lot of grip. So you'll especially see here as we come around, right around here, especially when the uphill picks up a lot, you'll see I put even more steering input in, but I'm on full throttle. Because you're going uphill and you have all that compression, your tires dig in real nice, so you can have a lot of steering angle in the car, even though you're full throttle. This is though where I was going to say there are some different lines, especially with like GT3s and GTEs. I would be going even faster, and what I would do here is actually go up under the curbing to straighten out this line. It would be a super early apex, but it works, and you can get through this corner really, really fast. And I actually was doing that in the cup on some laps, and I actually was going through here very, very quickly. In the cup car, though, it does unsettle it a little bit. And for those of you driving the GT4, I didn't take the GT4 here, but I would assume that with the GT4 suspension being as bouncy as it is, I'm sure it'll unsettle the car a little bit too. So, as you can see here, it's very smooth. Let's back up here. As we're coming through here, car's not bouncing around, nothing, it's just a very, very smooth line. So this is what I want to show you. And as you can see here too, because you have this compression at the end, you can get your steering and your car fairly straight. Ideally, you may want to be a little further to the left here as you're coming up over the hill. But you know, as long as you have the car angle straight and your steering straight, once you come up and you do get a little airborne, if your car is fast enough, you should be able to at least easily correct any off angle that you may have here, which I believe I do in this lap. Let's see here. So I'm coming off a little bit of an angle when I land, and I just put in a little bit of a correction. So ideally, if you come off a little further to the left here, it's a little bit flatter when you come up over the hill. So it makes your landing a little easier. But as you can see, I never lift. I'm full throttle here, up over the hill. Just have a slight correction in the steering, and that's about it. But you can go full throttle over the hill. Like I said, there's a couple of different lines to that corner, whether you're going up onto the curbing, whether you're not, to straighten out the corner. But you have so much compression going up the hill, you know, you can usually correct any offline that you may have, and it you know, you definitely just want to make sure that your wheel and your car are pointed as straight as possible when you're cresting over that hill, because if your car's fast enough, like in this car, you will be going airborne. The corner coming up here is probably the most straightforward corner on the track. It's your basic racing line: brake, trail brake in, late apex, and throttle and track out. In terms of a braking marker, I don't really have one here. I pretty much just do this by feel. Let's see, where am I braking here? So I'm picking up kind of, I think, where that tall tree is. If I'm right here. Yeah, like right when that tall tree, the tallest of the trees right there, it goes out of view. That's pretty much where I'm picking up my braking. But as you see here, brake, trail it in. Your apex is pretty much right before this this exit road right here. Maybe even at that exit road, if you're carrying a little more speed, you can trail brake to there. But you know, it's your very basic corner. Then we're back on throttle and track out. I don't like taking that curbing because I feel like it upsets the car. So I would avoid it if you can. This corner coming up is probably, I think, the hardest corner on the track to get right. Not so much in terms of making it. It's a very wide track onto the front straight. It's more about carrying the right amount of speed. Like I said, because this track is so short, corner speed is very, very important. What's also important is, and I should say, the reason why carrying corner speed is very important here is because they're actually very fast corners. This is actually a little bit unlike the Glen in a lot of its corners. The Glen in a lot of the corners, especially in the boot, you're downshifting into like second gear. Here, as you saw with the last corner, we were in fourth. This corner, we're going to be in fifth. They're very fast corners, and what happens with a fast corner is that you are in a high gear with low torque. So it's not like you're in a lower gear where if you get on the gas a little late, it's very torquey, or you know, it's if you get on the gas a little early, you can then hit the throttle a little harder to help rotate the car. If you are going to go wide, it's you don't have that much room for correction in a high gear, and because you're in the high gear, it's all about carrying maximum corner speed. So kind of like the uphill at turn 5. Here we have a downhill, and a downhill at first your tires are very light. You don't have that much grip. So if you start turning in right now, you're going to see not too much is going to happen. Right where the downhill stops and starts to level out, that's when your tires are compressed into the pavement. So you need to do all your turning in that split second where you have all that compression. All your turning and any little trail braking that you want to do to help get the nose in and to shave off a little bit of speed has to be done there. And in terms of apexing here, you're actually going to apex a little early because the width of the track onto the front straight actually gets wider, and so you have a lot of track out space. So it's almost like the last corner at Summit, where you're apexing on the early side because you have so much room to track out with. So that's kind of what's happening here. In terms of like I said, in terms of starting your braking, you don't want to do any of it until we get that compression, which is going to be right around here. And now the track's starting to level out, and that's when you get your compression. So as you can see, that's when I got on the brakes, and that's when I started my turn-in. And it's pretty much right up until the beginning of the curb here that you're doing that, and then I'm picking up the throttle. So as you can see, it looks like a very early apex, but as you're going to see, we're going to have a lot of track out room. So you can pretty much go full throttle here, but use all the track on the outside. The track opens up super wide here, as you can see on the front straight. So let me just play that through a little bit faster here. Here's your compression, trail brake in, turn, and then get back on the throttle and just go full throttle, also to help the car rotate a little bit, but just track all the way out. And just like I said, the most important thing is to just carry as much corner speed as you can, and that's pretty much true for every corner here, just because the track is so short. But yeah, so that was a 50.19 at Lime Rock Park in the classic configuration in the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car.